Hi. Okay, so this is time for the lecture video. So we're going to cover chapter 1. And it's so funny because I got distracted at the fact that when I was making this, I didn't realize that there was a bird on the giraffe's face, and it just kind of cracked me up. This is the new version of the textbook we've been using for a while. And I've been updating the entire course to match your new textbook. So I'm hoping that you have access to your textbook. If not, I have, these are my PowerPoints. And then there's also the part in Moodle that says book PowerPoints. The book PowerPoints are straight up from the text or from their website. The my PowerPoints I've adjusted slightly. So here I'm going to cover, I'm looking at the copyright date. I really wish it was like 2022 or something. So then we could cover the pandemic in here, but oh well. At least it's updated, sort of. So, chapter 1 is kind of an overview of the entire textbook. When you take Bio 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 4, we cover the whole text. But in Bio 1, 2, 3, we only cover the first like 12 chapters, maybe 13, but I think it's 12 chapters. And so in this PowerPoint, I let you know which topics are actually for 1, 2, 4. So don't worry about it. And then I also let you know which ones we're coming to. I'm not really sure why I always do chapter 1, other than I'm one of those completionist people. And so here you go. I'm not even going to worry about all that. Oh, I forgot to delete those parts. That's a red panda. So cute. Used to be on the cover of their textbook, but now it's the giraffe. So each of these are going to have stuff like this. The big idea is it's the stuff that we're going to be covering throughout the term. I kept their style, for lack of a better phrase, of their PowerPoints. I might be changing them later because it's so god awful, just this horrible white. But here we go. Biology is the study of life, like literally. Bio means life, ology means study, or logy means study. And so biology, that is the study of life. So that's totally what biology is. So anything that has to do with living parts falls under the category of biology. We have different properties, which we're going to talk about in just a second. I mean, it's right there too, but I have another thing ready for it. And the cell is the structural and functional unit of life. That means the cell is the first stage to become something that is alive. If there's no cells, they're not alive. This is a quick little picture thingy about what is required to be counted as alive. So, how is life recognized? Well, here you go. It's the properties of life. There has to be organization, which means like a cellular structure. You have to have a metabolism. There must be growth and development, reproduction, response to stimuli, homeostasis, and adaptation. In other words, evolution. So these are properties of life. If you're missing these, like overall, the entire species is missing it, then that's not counted as living. And I know that sounds really weird, but like a virus is not counted as living. You do not have to reproduce in order to be alive, but you have to, your species has to have that capability, because if you can't be replaced, you know, homeostasis, we're going to be talking about throughout the term. Most of what we talk about in Bio 1, 2, 3 is going to be the cell and some metabolism, a little bit, and homeostasis. Most of this is Bio 1, 2, 4. Okay, notice right up here at the headline, and I am so sorry, I'm like rubbing my eye like crazy, but I swear it feels like a little piece of fluff or something went in it, and it's driving me crazy. Okay, Bio 1, 2, 4 is where we talk about the domains. There are 3 domains. Not going to worry about it right now because, again, this is Bio 1, 2, 4. This is just showing you the domains. Again, this is for Bio 1, 2, 4. It's also showing you kingdom. I see that. All right, for this one, this is both Bio 123 and 124. We cover both. So biologists study life across a very broad range of scales from molecules, that's 123, up to the living planet, that's 124. So it gets broken up in various things, and part of why Bio 123 and 124 are separated as well. So Bio 123 is also known as cellular biology. So we go up to the cell level and then stop. So everything that's happening in the cells, that's what we cover in 123. Outside of that is what we cover in 124, and that includes things like evolution and whatnot. Emergent properties, this is stuff that shows up. So it's like emerging upon the interactions with the different parts. So a little bit here, but most of this is going to be 124. And then this is just showing you how it breaks down. Do I have another one? I think this might be it. Biosphere, the Earth, that's the largest, the most inclusive. And then it goes down and down and down. So if you're going from largest to smallest, it is biosphere, ecosystem, community, population, organism, organs and organ systems to tissues. All of that is Bio 124. And then cell, organelles, molecules, atoms. That's Bio 123. So we are going to start at the smallest part where we go from atoms to molecules to organelles to cell, and we cover all that. We will not even get to tissues in Bio 123. All the rest is Bio 124. So this is just breaking it down for you again and pointing out that the organism is broken down to organ and organ systems, which is then to the tissues, which brings us to our stuff, which is the cell and whatnot. So which of those levels of biological organization include all of the others in the list? Cell, molecule, organ, or tissue. So which of these contains all the rest? Your organ, because you have to have the right molecules put together to make up the cell. You have to have the right cells put together to make up the tissue, and then the right tissues together to make the organ, and then the organ system, then the organism. So there we go. And this is pretty much how we end up doing all the different things. Process of science. So the science thing here, it's telling you that it's just simply a way to figure out the world. Evidence-based process of inquiry to investigate the natural world. It basically means you notice things, you ask questions, and then you find answers. That's pretty much it. So that's what brings you the scientific method. So the scientific approach is also known as the scientific method, where you will have an observation, a question, a hypothesis, a prediction, test, and then you will analyze those results, and then you will have your conclusion. Scientific theory is completely different. And this is the part that's going to tie into your in-class assignment. The word theory is so misconstrued on a regular basis. A scientific theory means that it has been proven so much that it is as close to fact as science is going to go. Because if you have paid attention, whenever you're reading stuff with science, it tends to say things like it is least likely, it is most likely. We are most confident, it is 99.9% likely. Science does not tend to say 100% this, because science also understands that we're always learning. And so we might know something one day, but then since science never stops trying to learn, we might discover something else. If you look through history, you'll see that people used to, the doctors would bleed you when you were sick. So they would cut you to have blood come out to let the bad come out. They knew that that's how you helped somebody heal. And then as time went on, we discovered, oh, that's not really going to help. And so we stopped doing that. Science is all about learning. So when you hear the word theory, a layperson, when they say theory, they mean more like, kind of. I was about to say hypothetically, but most people use the word hypothetically wrong too. So if you've ever known someone who said, well, in theory, a chocolate cake is breakfast food because it contains egg and flour and milk. That's not what theory means in science. What theory means in science is think about gravity. They tested, poof, this falls. I can do this. It's going to fall. Anything I pick up is going to drop, unless, of course, it's lighter than air like helium. It's going to drop. We have done so many tests, and every one of these tests, we got the same result, which showed us that gravity is about as definite a thing as we can come up with. And that was a theory because we have tested it so much. Same thing for evolution, which is why I laugh whenever somebody has a bumper sticker that evolution is just a theory. They don't realize what they're saying is, hey, it's been proven over and over again. Which brings me to the other part about science, and what I flippin' love is science is not about proving something. You have to try to disprove it. And that is my favorite thing on the planet. When you're trying to find the truth, you have to say, hey, this is what I think. And then you have to try to prove yourself wrong. You have to try your hardest to prove yourself wrong. Because if you cannot prove yourself wrong, the only thing left is that you're correct. What most people do now is they just prove themselves right. And so you never actually know. And anyone who's ever wanted to win an argument, you know exactly where to Google. You just go straight somewhere. You look for someone who believes the same as you. So you're like, see, here's proof. Proving yourself correct, anybody can do that. Try to prove yourself wrong. And you will not only learn so much more, but you will be confident in your correct choices, if that makes sense. But failure to disprove is the basis of science. So your lecture assignment is to pick something that you believe is true. I don't care what it is, anything, and try to disprove yourself. And in the process of trying to disprove yourself, I want you to write it all out. Tell me what you did, where your thought process went, what did you look at, and that kind of thing. Once you have either disproven yourself or failed to disprove yourself, tell me your takeaway. Was it frustrating? Was it fascinating? Do you kind of like this new idea on how to find out if you are correct? Or is it just annoying because now you're going to have to recognize that not everything you believe is correct? It's a lot of fun. So that is your in-class assignment for this week. Anyway, kerbam. So the textbook version of the scientific method, I really hate it. It's doing the observation, then the question, then they're giving you a couple of different hypotheses. Prediction, test, and then results. It's not bad. It's not bad, but this is the method you have to learn for this class. It's close to what they had. So for this class, this will be on every single test. You will have to list the 7 steps of the scientific method as taught in this class in order. So it will be observation, question, hypothesis, prediction, test, analyze results, conclusion in that order. If you Google scientific method, I promise you will get different answers. This is the one you need, and this is the one that you're going to be using when you do the scientific method lab, which has its own video. I give different examples about how this works no matter what your field. You don't have to be a scientist to use this. This is legit how you do your own thought processes. This is how you make decisions. You just don't realize it. I give an example in the scientific method lab using a light bulb. And normally when I'm in class, I do this one and I ask for your feedback, but I can't get your feedback here because, hello, video. So I'm going to give you one different than the light bulb that was just previously done and that I'm using in the scientific method lab video. I'm going to use personal relationship. Let's say you walk into the house one day and you notice the person you live with, whether it's mom, dad, sister, brother, significant other, best friend, whatever. You see this person, I'm going to say he because I have a boyfriend and that's who I'm imagining in my head. I walk into the house and he looks upset. Observation. Woo, he looks upset. Question. What's wrong? Hypothesis. You sit there and you think a bit, and I'm like, maybe. Ooh. If I apologize for forgetting to close the toilet seat and the cat got in the toilet, then he will forgive me and know that I knew what I messed up. Prediction. When I apologize for forgetting to close the toilet seat and the cat getting wet, he will tell me it's okay and we'll move past this. Test. Well, I go, oh, I'm so sorry. I guess I forgot to close the toilet seat and Tigger landed in the toilet bowl. I'm so sorry. Analyze the results. He looks at me all kinds of confused. And goes, no, Tigger likes to pee in the toilet. So then I don't know why you're apologizing for that. Conclusion, my hypothesis was wrong. That's not why he was upset. And so now I have to try to figure it out. Did I forget a special date? Was I supposed to come in earlier? Did I forget something? Blah, blah, blah. Or is he just having a bad day? But you run this stuff through your head so fast. As soon as you notice somebody is upset, why are they upset? And you start running the numbers. So not only does the scientific method help you with things like the light bulb is out, I wonder why, it helps you with every possible interaction. You just don't realize it because you're not putting names to it. So science, what is the main requirement for a scientific hypothesis? You have to be able to test it. You have to be able to repeat it. So for the personal thing, that's the scientific method stuff I was talking about. For a hypothesis, you have to be able to find out if it's true. So let's go back to the light bulb example. Change the light bulb. That's a test. If you constantly change the light bulb, that's repeatable. When you're looking at the more science-y portions and you're thinking of like labs and like, I don't know, development of vaccines and various items like that, when science says, hey, gravity works, you have to find a test like dropping something. And then other people have to do it. So this is the reason it's super important in science to write everything down. You claim everything, even the mistakes, because you never know what's going to be found. Prime example of this is penicillin was a mistake. And back in the day, people didn't hide their mistakes. They just documented it like, oh man, I forgot to close this sucker. Whoops, this is what happened. And now there's this fuzzy stuff here. How about that? And that's how we found penicillin, which is like one of the highest used antibiotics. I can't use it, I'm allergic, but most people use penicillin. And it's incredible. And it was from an oops. And if the guy had not documented it, and then other people had not tested it and repeated the tests, and everyone was able to make the same mistake happen, and that fungus, which turned out to be penicillin, saved millions upon millions of people's lives now. So that's pretty cool. So the main requirement for the scientific hypothesis is you have to say, hey, this is what I think is going to happen. You have to be able to test it. You have to be able to explain that test so other people can do exactly the same test. If you get the result only one time, that's not valid. That brings us to experiments and having controlled experiments. I was taking a look at my laptop to see how many slides are left. So you will have an independent variable and you will have a dependent variable. And if it's a proper experiment, you also have a control. So your independent variable is what you are mucking about. So this is the part that is independent of anything. It can do whatever. you have your dependent variable. This is what is dependent upon what you are mucking about with. And I'll have examples in just a second. Controlled experiment means that this group, you know exactly what the results are supposed to be. The textbook gives you this example of these mice. I'm going to cover that, but then I'm going to tell you a much more fun one. I guess I should mention that. So here they're telling you, for the example, these researchers used these mice models that did not match their habitat and had a higher predation rate. Predation rate means more things came down and took them and munched on. For people, you can test these with clinical trials, not the getting munched on by a predator, but the tests. You can also use a retrospective study or a prospective observational study. Retrospective means you gather all this data and you look at what happened in the past. This has been done a lot for dietary things and like secondhand smoke and lung cancer and stuff like that. Same thing for the observational studies. Just go, hey, here you go, blah, 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 and you observe a lot. Now, here's the mice thing they were talking about. Typically, the mice that were found on the beach blended more with the sand, and the ones inland blended more with the woods and stuff like that. So for this experiment, they took them and swapped locations. And what they found was that when they were where they were supposed to be, they didn't get munched on as much. But when they flipped them, so they put the white one in the brown area and the brown one in the white area, the amount of them getting munched on by the predators increased tremendously. So that's all this is telling. So now I'm going to tell you about the other one. The other example, there is this thing called Olestra. Back in the day, we had these Wow chips. It was from Frito-Lay. And they had the Lay's potato chips, they had the Doritos, they had Fritos, all of those things. And instead of using oil, they used this thing called Olestra. And so they were making fat-free chips. Imagine being able to eat potato chips, Doritos, Fritos, and they have zero fat. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. People were so thrilled. So people were like mass consuming them. Then you started noticing people were complaining about things. And on the bottom of the bag, it had the tiny little print and it warned you that it may cause anal leakage. What it meant was people started getting very loose, massive diarrhea, all kinds of stomach issues. And so people were thinking the Olestra was bad for them. So they had to conduct an experiment to prove whether or not Olestra was in fact bad for your gut. So they had groups of people, two groups of people. The control group was given bags of potato chips, and they were not told whether or not they were Olestra or regular. It's just, here's your chips, eat it however you wish. That is the control group, because we know how people should respond with the regular potato chips. They've been out here forever. I was trying to think how to word something. Anyway, the Olestra ones, that's what we were actually testing, was getting the people to eat the Olestra chips and compare them to people eating regular potato chips. So I say we like I was in on the study. I was not in on the study. The people were given the two groups. They did not know which group they were in. One group, control, given regular potato chips. The other one's given all the Olestra chips. And then they sat back and waited. Turned out, when they controlled how many chips they ate, nobody had any bad issues with the Olestra chips. What happened was people, when they saw the bag had zero fat, ate the entire bag. You're not supposed to eat an entire bag of potato chips in one sitting. And so it turned out the Olestra was not at fault. It was people not controlling their own stuff that was at fault. I find that test way more interesting than the mice. Anyway, here's a checkpoint question. Basically trying to figure out what this would be. So in some studies, researchers try to match factors such as sex, age, and general health for subjects in the control and experimental groups. What is this experimental design trying to do? Well, trying to make sure that they're as close as possible. So, like the people in the Olestra versus regular potato chip group, you wanted them to be as similar as possible because you're testing one variable, whether the chips were fried in Olestra or fried in vegetable oil. You don't want to just say, hey, all the women felt this way, all the men felt that way, because then that could be something different. You want everybody to be as similar as possible. And that's why whenever you see the studies, you either have this crazy range where they try to get everybody, but then they do all the same everybody in both groups, or you have a very narrow range, but everybody is that same. So that's what that is. So this is talking about evolutionary relationships with the red pandas. We're not really going to be talking about evolution stuff until we get to bio 1, 2, 4. So not really too worried about this. Just sorry, pointing it out because it's here. Ba-ba. Process of science, repetitive, nonlinear, and collaborative. Yeah, kind of feel like I've beat this into the ground already. You have to be able to repeat it. If you can't repeat it, it does not count. You have to share it all with everybody, the entire science community, because the science community has to also agree. If there are multiple scientists who counter it and they're like, well, look, we did the test you did, but these are our results, then that means it's not valid until there's enough other results that most of them are this way. And we find out why it didn't match. This is the reason why actual scientific things, like when you say this has been mostly proven, this is that, they come from peer-reviewed journals. This means when you wrote up your scientific findings, it goes to other scientists of that field so they can look over it and verify whether or not it's accurate. The whole thing is to make sure that there's nothing being hidden, nothing being lied about, there's no bias. That's the most important thing, is the no bias. It doesn't matter what you believe or what you think. Science is all about what you can show and what you can reproduce. I love it. Okay. This is just showing you that it does a whole lot of stuff. You've got the exploration and discovery that also leads to the societal benefits and outcomes and feedback from the scientific community. Those go there. It's all encompassing. Everything goes into the other. All of it is connected. So why is hypothesis testing at the center of the process of science? Well, because if you don't have a proper, I dropped what I'm fidgeting with. If you don't have a proper hypothesis, then you don't have a test. You have to have that if I do this, then this is going to happen in order to test it. And again, for science, once you test it, you have to be able to explain what happened, and other people have to be able to repeat exactly what you did and get the same thing. And so you have to have. Goal of science is to understand natural phenomena. And then we have, and oh my gosh, if anyone's ever watched the Muppets, that's what's running through my head right now. And dude, anyway, technology is to apply the scientific knowledge for some purpose. So these guys are separate, but together. So a lot of people who insist they don't like science, they think it's ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. You don't realize science is how we got cell phones and laptops and movies and all these things. Without science, you wouldn't have any of the technologies that you use. 5 unifying themes in biology. Evolution, bio 1, 2, 4. Bio 1, 2, 4. Bio 1, 2, 4. Bio 1, 2, 4. Ha-ha! Bio 1, 2, 3. Life. So the process of life depends on the transmission and use of information. So we are going to cover DNA and genetics later this term. Not really going to worry about it right now because this is near the end of this term, but we will cover this. Structure and function, this is huge. This is very important. And we will cover this a lot in class because if it loses its 3D structure, it loses its function, which right here on the next slide, reminding you that if it loses the 3D shape, it loses the function. This is super important in biology. So this will be drilled into your head throughout the term. Energy flow. We will cover photosynthesis in this term. And so that's part of what this is, where it says energy flows through an ecosystem in one direction. So sunlight goes down, the plants absorb it, they turn it into their own glucose, which they take. And then as you move up from there, that's how you get the other creatures. We don't cover all the rest in Bio 1, 2, 3. The rest of it's 1, 2, 4, but we do cover photosynthesis in Bio 1, 2, 3 and cellular respiration. This Bio 1, 2, 4. Yeah, this is just some basics about biology and science in general. We will talk about the microscopes and stuff like that in Bio 1, 2, 3. In fact, we cover it in week 2, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we cover it in week 2. Emergent properties, this is what we're going to see as we're going along, how it all starts working together, and then certain properties emerge. And use an approach that's called systems biology, where scientists are going to try to model the behavior of biological systems in order to analyze stuff. We don't really do that. If I could get the photosynthesis lab to work properly, we kind of do it. I have to see what we've got. So. And that's it. So the things that are highlighted in yellow, these are the things for Bio 1, 2, 3. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that is, as I close this, that is our first chapter. Again, chapter 1 is like a highlights reel. It's covering what we're going to cover through the whole book. Don't stress yourself out. Week 1 should be relatively simple. You've got your in-class assignment, which I told you about earlier in this lecture. And you've got your quiz, and you've got your scientific method lab that's done online. There's a separate video for that. So make sure to do those, and you'll be good. And I will see you on Monday. Peace out.